Jim Carrey has never been predictable, but when it comes to his heart, he has become one of the most private men in Hollywood. And that's exactly why this rare personal update has sent fans into a frenzy. After years of retreating from the spotlight, redefining himself beyond fame, and openly questioning the illusion of celebrity, Jim Carrey has confirmed something deeply personal. There is love in his life again, quietly, intentionally, and on his own terms. For a man whose entire career was built on being louder than everyone else in the room, this quiet confirmation speaks volumes. For decades, Carrey's life has unfolded in front of the world like a high-speed highlight reel. In 1994 alone, he did what most actors could never dream of accomplishing an entire career. Ace Ventura: Pet Detective made him a breakout star. The Mask proved he could blend cartoonish absurdity with genuine charm. Dumb and Dumber cemented him as a generational comedic force. 3 smash hits in 1 year. It was unprecedented. Hollywood had found its new golden boy. He wasn't just funny, he was fearless. He contorted his body in ways that seemed physically impossible. His facial expressions became memes before memes even existed. Kids quoted him on playgrounds. Adults lined up for midnight premieres. Studios paid him record-breaking salaries because they knew one thing: if Jim Carrey's name was on the poster, audiences would show up. But while the world saw the wild man with the rubber face, there was always another layer beneath the surface. Long before the fame, Jim Carrey was a struggling Canadian kid helping his family survive financial hardship. He has spoken openly about living in a van at one point, about watching his parents struggle, about developing humor as both a shield and a weapon. Comedy wasn't just talent, it was survival. It was a way to create light in dark places. Maybe that's why love has always been such a central theme in his life. When you grow up understanding instability, you crave connection. His first marriage to Melissa Womer in 1987 came during the early climb of his career. Together, they welcomed his daughter Jane, and Carrey has often said that fatherhood changed him forever. No matter how chaotic his Hollywood life became, he repeatedly described Jane as his grounding force, the one person who saw him beyond fame. After his divorce in 1995, Carrey's romantic life became public property. That same year, he married his Dumb and Dumber co-star Lauren Holly in what seemed like a whirlwind Hollywood romance, but the marriage ended within a year. Fame was accelerating, pressure was mounting, and the pace of his life was relentless. Then came Renée Zellweger. Their relationship felt different. They met on the set of Me, Myself, and Irene in 1999, and their off-screen chemistry was undeniable. They became engaged, and for a moment it looked like Carrey had found lasting love. When they split in 2000, fans were stunned. Years later, he would refer to her as the love of my life, a statement that revealed just how deeply he had felt that loss. By the mid-2000s, Carrey was in a high-profile relationship with Jenny McCarthy. For 5 years, they were inseparable. Red carpets, interviews, public declarations of affection. They seemed playful and in sync. But when that relationship ended in 2010, something subtle but significant changed in him. He began pulling back. Not dramatically, not overnight, but steadily. He stopped chasing constant visibility. He stopped being the perpetual talk show hurricane. His interviews became slower, more philosophical. He questioned identity. He questioned fame. He questioned whether the version of himself the world adored was even real. Then came the devastating chapter involving Cathriona White. Their relationship was complicated and on and off, but her passing in 2015 shook him deeply. The legal battles that followed kept his name in headlines, but those close to him suggested he was processing something far heavier than public controversy. He was processing grief. In the years that followed, Jim Carrey transformed in ways that even longtime fans struggled to understand at first. He leaned into painting, producing vivid, politically charged, emotionally raw artwork. He spoke about ego dissolution. He described himself not as a personality, but as an energy experiencing itself. He gave interviews where he dismantled the concept of identity entirely, saying at one red carpet event that there is no me. It sounded abstract, but to him, it was clarity. He began speaking about depression in deeply human terms, explaining that depression can be your body's way of rejecting the mask you're wearing. For someone who had literally worn masks for a living, that metaphor carried weight. And then, after stepping into the role of Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic the Hedgehog films, he surprised fans again by openly discussing retirement. He said he felt content, fulfilled, done even. He said, "I have enough. I've done enough." When a star at that level says they're satisfied, it changes the narrative. So when whispers began circulating that there was someone special in his life, someone he was choosing not to parade in front of cameras, fans paid attention. Because this wasn't the Jim Carrey of 2005. This wasn't a red carpet power couple era. This was something different. And now, with his quiet confirmation that love exists in his world again, the story feels complete in a way it hasn't in years. This wasn't an explosive announcement. It wasn't a coordinated press strategy. It wasn't a magazine cover. It was calm, subtle, personal. And that's why it feels real. Social media reaction has been overwhelmingly supportive. Longtime fans who watched him grow from the manic genius of In Living Color to the layered dramatic actor of The Truman Show have expressed genuine happiness for him. Many have commented that he seems lighter, more at peace, less like a man running from something, and more like someone who has finally arrived somewhere. At this stage of life, romance isn't about spectacle. Jim Carrey is in his 60s. He's a grandfather. He's a man who has seen the highest highs of fame and the lowest valleys of heartbreak. Love now would look different than it did in his 30s or 40s. It would be quieter. It would be intentional. It would be built on mutual understanding rather than adrenaline.
There's something deeply poetic about the timing. In an industry that often discards aging stars or pressures them to cling to youth, Carrey stepped away voluntarily. He didn't chase relevance. He didn't fight for constant visibility. He let silence do the talking. And now, from that silence, he has chosen to share just enough to let the world know he hasn't closed himself off. Looking back at his filmography, you can see the romantic thread woven through it all. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind wasn't just a performance, it was vulnerability on screen. The Truman Show explored the idea of living inside an illusion, something Carrey himself later seemed to grapple with in real life. Even in comedies, his characters often chased love with reckless devotion. He has never done anything halfway. When Jim Carrey commits to a role, to a philosophy, to a person, he dives completely. Maybe that intensity made earlier relationships difficult under relentless media pressure. Maybe stepping away from Hollywood's constant spotlight allowed him to build something steady. Growth requires space, and he gave himself that space. Fans have noticed the difference in him. In recent appearances, he seems comfortable in stillness, comfortable in pauses, comfortable not performing. And that comfort suggests something powerful. Contentment. Contentment isn't flashy, it doesn't trend, it doesn't demand attention, but it radiates. This confirmation of private love feels less like gossip and more like resolution, not a dramatic twist, but a peaceful continuation. Hollywood loves redemption arcs, but this isn't redemption, it's evolution. It's a man who has already conquered the external world, turning inward and finding what actually matters. Jim Carrey once said that the purpose of life is to release fear and embrace love. After everything he has endured, public breakups, tragedy, identity crises, existential exploration, choosing love again is an act of courage. It tells us he believes in connection despite loss. It tells us he believes in vulnerability despite scrutiny. It tells us that even after experiencing the artificiality of fame at its highest level, he still values something authentic. And maybe that's why this moment resonates so strongly. It's not about who she is, it's about who he has become. The young comic who wrote himself a $10 million check for acting services rendered before he ever made it big has now achieved everything he once dreamed of. But the fact that love still matters to him, that companionship still feels significant, reminds us that success doesn't replace connection. In many ways, this feels like the closing chapter of a long, emotional journey that began decades ago. The wild 90s superstar, the serious, dramatic actor, the spiritual philosopher, the near retiree seeking peace, and now the man who quietly confirms that his heart is open. He may never reveal every detail, he may never give interviews dissecting the relationship, and that's okay, because the power of this update lies in its simplicity. After all the noise, all the headlines, all the chaos, Jim Carrey chose love. And perhaps that's the most grounded human decision he's ever made. For someone who made millions laugh, maybe the most beautiful plot twist is that he's found something that makes him quietly, privately happy. And maybe, just maybe, that's the greatest role he's ever played. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more celebrity updates just like this.